Filing the federal lawsuit officially torched Robert Gruendel's elite career. A $39 billion valuation rested on his willingness to hide one catastrophic safety flaw. But the humanoid machines being sold to Microsoft, the legal detonation of Gruendel versus Figure AI sent shockwaves through the Northern District of California. He alleged that these humanoid robots possessed crushing forces powerful enough to fracture a human skull. This was the moment the Silicon Betrayal went from a boardroom rumor to a public nightmare. Across the valley, another ghost of the industry's past, Cristina Balan, was achieving what many thought impossible: breaking the forced arbitration seal of Tesla. On March 23, 2026, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals handed the Romanian-born mechanical engineer a historic victory, allowing her defamation case against Elon Musk's empire to finally reach open court after 12 years of exile. These are not just legal disputes. They are the front lines of a war between the engineers who build our future and the executives willing to ignore a lethal flaw to keep the valuation climbing. From high-torque humanoid motors to the faulty floor mats of the Model S, the message from the C-suite has been chillingly consistent. Safety is a roadmap intended for investors to see and for engineers to forget the moment the $39 billion wire hits the bank account. The dream of a robotic future was accelerating, but behind the sleek titanium exteriors, the mounting casualties of conscience were beginning to testify. This is the story of the men and women who were paid to ensure our safety, only to find themselves hunted for doing exactly that. Every empire starts with before the federal lawsuits and the landmark 2026 court rulings, there was the electric hum of pure, unadulterated innovation. In 2003, a 19-year-old Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford to found Theranos, promising a world where a single drop of blood. By September 2013, when Tyler Shultz joined the company as a research engineer, he wasn't just starting a job, he was joining a crusade. At its peak, this vision was worth $9 billion. And for the young engineers in the Palo Alto labs, the Edison machine was the holy grail of biotech. It was the same intoxicating atmosphere in 2014 when Cristina Balan was iterating on the Tesla Model S. To Balan and her peers, this wasn't just a vehicle, it was a mechanical manifesto for a sustainable future. They worked late into the night, fueled by the belief that they were engineering the world's transition to clean energy under the ruthless, high-stakes vision of Elon Musk. Fast forward a decade to the Silicon Valley labs of Figure AI, where Robert Gruendel served as the principal robotic safety engineer. Backed by heavyweights like NVIDIA and Microsoft, the mission was even more ambitious, building the world's first commercially viable humanoid robot. Success felt inevitable, especially after Figure AI closed a staggering $39 billion funding round in late 2025. In those early chapters, the founders and engineers were a dream team of the highest order. They shared pizza over blueprints and sketched safety roadmaps on glass whiteboards, convinced that their technical integrity was the company's greatest asset. For Shultz, Balan, and Gruendel, these were the golden days of the garage to empire story, where loyalty was a given and the mission was worth more than the equity. They were the architects of the impossible, blissfully unaware that the foundations of these multi-billion-dollar empires were already beginning to buckle under the weight of fake-it-till-you-make-it culture. At this stage, the code was clean, the prototypes were humming, and the betrayal was still They believed they were changing the world, but they were actually building cages for their own consciences. The atmosphere inside the Figure AI laboratory shifted from the electric buzz of innovation to a cold, clinical dread the moment the steel gave way. Robert Gruendel, the principal robotic safety engineer, watched as a humanoid prototype, powered by high-torque motors designed to simulate human fluidity, malfunctioned during a routine stress test. The result wasn't a mere software glitch. The robot's arm lashed out with terrifying force, tearing a jagged 1/4-inch gash through a reinforced steel refrigerator door. Gruendel didn't see a hardware failure. He saw a potential crime scene. His internal calculations confirmed a sickening reality. The kinetic energy involved was powerful enough to fracture a human skull in a single strike. This wasn't the helpful domestic assistant envisioned in the $39 billion valuation pitch decks. It was a walking, lethal threat. Gruendel meticulously documented the safety roadmap required to prevent a catastrophe, expecting his concerns to be the priority for a company backed by Nvidia and Microsoft. But as the 2025 funding round finalized, the culture changed overnight. The lawsuit filed in the Northern District of California alleges that the moment the capital was secured, the executives gutted his safety protocols. In the race to be first to market, the roadmap was viewed not as a shield, but as a speed bump. But what investigators discovered next changed everything. While Gruendel was battling high-torque physics in Silicon Valley, Cristina Balan was uncovering a low-tech defect with high-stakes consequences at Tesla. It started with the floor mats of the Model S. Balan, a mechanical engineer who had once been a devoted believer in the mission, discovered that the mats had a tendency to curl and wedge themselves directly under the brake pedal. In a high-performance vehicle capable of extreme speed, her report to management wasn't met with a recall order, but with systemic dismissal. This same pattern of valuation over viability defined the nightmare Tyler Shultz experienced at Theranos. Behind the sleek, minimalist glass of the Edison blood testing device, Shultz realized the machine failed internal quality control tests at a rate that would be criminal in any other medical setting, sometimes showing errors in nearly every critical run. To maintain the $9 billion illusion, the company was secretly running patient samples on. Shultz watched as the Edison produced false results for HIV and cancer, turning a medical breakthrough into a billion-dollar magic trick with real-world casualties. For these engineers, the fracture wasn't just in the hardware, it was a total collapse of the ethical foundation their companies were built upon. They realized they weren't building the future, they were masking a lethal present. Following his November 21, 2025, lawsuit filing in the Northern District of California, Figure AI didn't just deny his claims regarding the robot's skull-fracturing torque. They launched a campaign to thoroughly discredit the very engineer who had helped secure their $39 billion valuation. This is the standard Silicon Valley counterattack. When a safety flaw threatens the IPO, you don't fix the hardware. You delete the person who found the bug. Within the clean rooms of Tesla, Cristina Balan became the ultimate test case for this death-by-litigation strategy. After she reported that Model S floor mats were dangerously curling under brake pedals, she was cast into a decade-long purgatory of forced arbitration. A legal black hole designed to bury corporate negligence far. Everything they believed up to this point was wrong. Technicians like Tyler Shultz at Theranos faced even more aggressive shadow warfare, while revealing that the Edison device was providing fraudulent results for critical conditions like HIV and cancer. Shultz was stalked by private investigators and intimidated by high-priced attorneys. His family was forced to liquidate $400,000 in legal fees just to protect him from a company that was, at the time, the darling of the venture capital world. This was a war of attrition, aimed at bankrupting the conscience of any engineer who dared to prioritize human safety over a $700 million investment pool. However, the impenetrable shield of forced arbitration finally shattered on March 23, 2026. In a historic ruling, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals nullified a previous order in the Balan versus Tesla case, effectively pulling the safety retaliation claim out of the shadows and into open court. This legal breakthrough has set the stage for the May 15th, 2026 status conference, creating a terrifying new reality for tech giants who once relied on silence. As Gruendel's case now moves into the high-stakes discovery phase, the digital fortresses built on non-disclosure agreements are finally beginning to crack. Under the weight, the cost of whistleblowing in the Valley is never just measured in legal fees. It is measured in the total restructuring of how we view our technological future. For Cristina Balan, the long path from her 2014 firing to the expected May 15, 2026 status conference represents a 12-year odyssey against a corporate giant. Her victory in the Ninth Circuit didn't just allow a defamation case to proceed. It punctured the invisible wall of forced arbitration that has shielded Silicon Valley's darkest secrets for decades. While firms like Figure AI continue to operate under a staggering $39 billion valuation, the shadow of Robert Gruendel's discovery, the 1/4-inch gash in a steel door and the potential for fractured skulls, the Humanoid Safety Act, currently being debated in legislative sessions, stands as a direct consequence of an engineer who refused to let a $39 billion funding round silence a lethal defect. We see this same grim mathematics in the $2.5 billion DOJ settlement legacy at Boeing, and the heartbreaking $50,000 settlement reached with the estate of John Barnett. It is a staggering contrast. The price of a human life or a career versus the billions generated by aggressive, unchecked scaling. Even Tyler Shultz, who ultimately saw Elizabeth Holmes sentenced to over 11 years, saw his own family spend over $400,000 in legal fees just to protect him from the empire he helped expose. As the July 2026 deadline for global AI safety protocols looms for giants like Samsung, the tech industry faces a systemic reckoning. The Theranos effect taught investors to look closer, but the cases of 2026 prove that the most dangerous flaws are often the ones, and it forces a final, chilling reflection on the nature of progress. Can a culture built on moving fast and breaking things ever truly be safe if the things being broke in Silicon Valley? Your biggest threat is not the competition. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories of tech empires built on broken trust. Tell us in the comments, whose side are you on?